The tension in the Galactic Council's chamber was thick enough to cut with a knife. The massive room, built to house representatives from over 300 species, felt smaller than usual today. The high domed ceiling with its swirling patterns of light seemed to press down on everyone present. Representative Neri took measured steps toward the central podium. Her boots made soft clicking sounds against the polished floor, each step echoing in the unusual quiet. The Earth military uniform she wore stood out sharply among the gathered aliens, a purposeful statement in itself. While other species wore flowing robes of silk-like materials or ceremonial dress that sparkled with precious stones, the stark black and gray of her uniform carried its own power. From his position in the shadows of the upper gallery, Admiral Dai watched the scene unfold. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his hands were clasped tightly behind his back. He had argued against this final warning, believing the time for talks was long past. But Neri had insisted, one last chance for peace. The attack on Haven Colony had been the final straw. For 3 centuries, humanity had bowed and scraped to alien demands. They had accepted unfair trade deals that favored other species. They had limited their ships to certain trade routes. They had even allowed alien inspectors to monitor their military bases. All because humanity was labeled as dangerous, all because Earth was classified as a death world. The Viridian ambassador shifted in his seat, his crystalline body catching the light and sending rainbow patterns dancing across the walls. His species had led the attack on Haven Colony, believing humans would respond like all other civilized species, with strongly worded complaints and trade sanctions. They had been very wrong. Honored representatives, Neri began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. For 300 years, humanity has played by your rules. We have been good neighbors. We have been peaceful traders. We have accepted your restrictions and your oversight. She paused, letting her words sink in. But you have mistaken our patience for weakness. A murmur ran through the assembled aliens. Several species capable of changing color showed signs of distress, turning pale or shifting to darker hues. They could sense what was coming. The unprovoked attack on Haven Colony cannot and will not go unanswered, Neri continued. 15,000 human lives were lost. Children, families, peaceful settlers who had done nothing wrong. Her voice grew harder. Their only crime was being human. Their only crime was being born on what you call a death world. The Viridian ambassador rose, his crystalline form chiming softly. Representative Neri, surely we can discuss compensation. Compensation. Neri's laugh was cold. You believe credits can pay for those lives. You believe trade concessions can make up for murdered children. Admiral Day allowed himself a small smile. Neri was playing her role perfectly. Let them think this was about revenge. Let them think humans were acting on emotion. They would never see the real plan coming. The restrictions end today, Neri declared. The oversight ends today. Humanity will no longer pretend to be less than we are to make you comfortable. We will no longer hide our strength to ease your fears. The chamber erupted in shouts and protests. Several species began broadcasting emergency signals to their homeworlds. In the chaos, few noticed Admiral Dai slip quietly from the gallery. Neri raised her voice over the din. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. This is a courtesy notification. Her eyes swept the chamber. You called Earth a death world. You called us dangerous. You were right about both things, but you never understood why. The Viridian ambassador's crystalline form was vibrating with stress patterns. Are you declaring war? No, Neri replied calmly. We are simply stopping our act. For 3 centuries, we've pretended to be what you wanted us to be. A manageable threat, a contained species, a solved problem. She smiled, and there was nothing friendly in it. That pretense ends now. As if on cue, every computer screen in the chamber lit up with the same message. Data streamed across them. Military bases that didn't exist in official records. fleet movements that had gone undetected, weapons technology that had been carefully hidden, the true extent of human preparation and power. Admiral Da, now safely aboard his flagship, watched through the chamber's security feeds as understanding dawned on the alien representatives. They had thought they were dealing with a young, barely contained species. Instead, they had been playing chess with a grandmaster who had been deliberately losing for 3 centuries. The attack on Haven Colony hadn't changed anything. It had simply given humanity the excuse they had been waiting for. As Nari walked out of the chamber, leaving chaos in her wake, she knew the real work was about to begin. The day Deathworlders stopped playing nice wasn't just a warning. It was the beginning of a new era in galactic politics, an era where humanity would finally show its true face to the stars. Commander Ta stood motionless in her quarters aboard the UES Indomitable, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. The Haven Colony distress signal played again and again, each cycle bringing fresh waves of screams and desperate pleas for help. Her quarters, usually a place of peace and reflection, now felt like a tomb. The signal had been playing for 3 hours. She could have turned it off. She should have turned it off. But she kept it running, letting each cry and plea fuel the ice-cold rage building inside her. This wasn't the hot anger of youth. This was something deeper, something that had been waiting for centuries. On her desk, a small hologram showed the current death toll: 15,247 human lives. The number kept rising as more bodies were found in the wreckage. The Viridians had been thorough in their attack, using weapons designed to maximize civilian casualties. They had targeted housing complexes first, then hospitals, then schools. Her communication panel chimed. "Commander." Her first officer's voice was tight with controlled emotion. "Defense Director Hyun is broadcasting on all secure channels." Tay touched a control, and Director Hen's face appeared on her main screen. The old man looked grim, his usually perfect uniform showing signs of a long, sleepless night. "Ghost Protocol is now active," he said without preamble. "Authorization code. Earth remembers." Those 2 words sent chills down Ta's spine. They were words every human commander knew but had never expected to hear. Words that had been passed down through generations of military leaders, waiting for this moment. Across human space, things began to change. Innocent-looking asteroid mining operations transformed into fully equipped military bases. Civilian transport ships shed their false outer hulls, revealing state-of-the-art warships underneath. Orbital platforms that had appeared to be weather stations activated weapon systems that had been hidden for centuries. On the Indomitable, Commander Todd watched as her own ship underwent its transformation. Panels that had been disguised as maintenance access revealed advanced weapon systems. The ship's civilian power core tripled its output as military-grade systems came online. Even the crew quarters transformed, weapon lockers emerging from walls that had appeared solid moments before. "All ships reporting ready, Commander," her first officer reported. "The entire Ghost Fleet is awaiting orders." The Ghost Fleet. For 300 years, humanity had maintained 2 navies, the public one that other species were allowed to see, and the real one. The public navy used outdated technology, limited weapons, and followed all the restrictions placed on Deathworld species. The Ghost Fleet was something else entirely. In his office on Earth, Defense Director Hyun watched as reports flooded in from across human space. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The Viridians and their allies had thought they were dealing with a contained threat. They had no idea that every restriction they'd placed on humanity had been quietly circumvented centuries ago. The alien inspectors who had regularly visited human military bases had seen exactly what humanity wanted them to see. They had never detected the vast underground facilities, the hidden shipyards, the weapon research centers. Human technological development hadn't been stopped by alien restrictions. It had simply gone underground. Commander Ta gathered her crew in the Indomitable's main hall. Looking at their faces, she saw the same cold fury she felt. These men and women had trained their entire lives for this moment, maintaining a facade of limited capability, while secretly preparing for war. For 3 centuries, she addressed them, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall, "We have hidden our strength. We have played the part of the barely civilized Deathworlders, grateful for any scraps of technology or trade the galactic community would share with us." She paused, letting her words sink in. "That ends today." The crew stood straighter, pride visible in their bearing. They had been chosen for this ship, this moment, because they were the best humanity had to offer. Now they could finally show it. In orbit around Earth, the first wave of the Ghost Fleet emerged from hiding. Ships that had posed as cargo vessels, mining platforms, and space debris revealed their true nature. Advanced stealth systems, weapons that broke half a dozen galactic treaties, and armor that could withstand anything the alien species could throw at them. The Haven Colony distress signal continued to play in Commander Tai's quarters, but now it served a different purpose. It wasn't just feeding her anger anymore. It was reminding her of why humanity had spent 3 centuries preparing for this moment. The aliens had thought they were protecting themselves from the dangerous Deathworlders. They had never understood that their actions had only made humans more determined, more prepared, and more dangerous. As the Ghost Protocol activated across human space, the true awakening of the giant began. Humanity wasn't just revealing its hidden strength. It was showing the galaxy why Earth had earned its classification as a death world. It wasn't the planet that made humans dangerous. It was their ability to plan, to prepare, and to wait for the perfect moment to strike. The day the Deathworlders stopped playing nice had arrived, and the galaxy was about to learn why that should terrify them. Captain Min stood motionless on the bridge of her ship, the UEA's Shadow Strike, watching the battle unfold through the main viewport. The Viridian fleet, over 300 ships strong, moved through the Arcturus sector with complete confidence. They had no reason to suspect anything was wrong. Their sensors showed only empty space and a few civilian trading vessels. Those sensors were lying. Min touched her command console, sending a silent signal to her fleet. Within seconds, 50 human warships dropped their stealth fields. The Viridian's first warning was the sight of heavily armed military vessels appearing where moments ago there had been nothing but seemingly harmless cargo ships. "All ships, weapons free," Min ordered calmly. "Show them what we've been hiding." The human ships opened fire with weapons that shouldn't have existed. Plasma cannons that broke every galactic treaty, targeting systems more advanced than anything the alien species had developed, and shield technology that humanity had perfected centuries ago, but kept hidden. The Viridian fleet tried to respond, but their weapons were designed to fight the human ships they thought they knew. Outdated vessels with limited capabilities. Instead, they faced warships that had been disguised as civilian craft, hiding in plain sight for years. Enemy vessels attempting to retreat. Min's tactical officer reported. "They're broadcasting surrender signals." Min nodded slowly. "Accept their surrender. But make sure they understand. This is just the beginning." The battle for the Arcturus sector had lasted exactly 47 minutes. The mighty Viridian Armada, pride of their species, now drifted as broken debris, or limped away in defeat. Not a single human ship had been lost. Across the sector, similar scenes played out. Human ships revealed themselves, emerging from hidden docks or transforming from their civilian disguises. The alien powers had thought they knew where all human military vessels were. They had never imagined that every civilian ship in human space could become a warship at a moment's notice. On her bridge, Min received reports from other fleet commanders. The Ghost Protocol had worked perfectly. For centuries, humanity had maintained 2 separate fleets, the public one that followed alien restrictions, and the hidden one that had been preparing for this day. "Captain," her communications officer called out, "we're picking up transmissions from the alien worlds. They're panicking." Min allowed herself a small smile. Of course they were panicking. They had just discovered that every human trading vessel that had visited their worlds, every mining ship that had worked their asteroid belts, every civilian transport that had passed through their territory. All of them had been potential warships. The stealth technology that had hidden the human ships wasn't new. Humanity had perfected it centuries ago, but had kept it secret. While alien species focused on developing better sensors, humans had worked on becoming invisible to any sensor. A holographic display showed the status of the broader conflict. Human forces were emerging everywhere, revealing centuries of hidden preparation. Space stations that appeared to be simple trading posts transformed into military bases. Asteroid mining operations revealed themselves as weapon platforms. Even the small research outposts scattered throughout alien territory showed their true nature as forward operating bases. Message from command, the communications officer announced. The Viridian Home Fleet is mobilizing. They're calling for allies. Min nodded. Let them come. Let them bring every ship they had. They still wouldn't understand what they were truly facing. Humanity hadn't just hidden its military strength. It had hidden its true technological advancement, its real production capabilities, and its actual territorial reach. The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, securing their victory in the Arcturus sector. These men and women had trained for years, maintaining the facade of being simple civilian spacecraft operators, while preparing for this moment. Now they could finally show their true skills. Captain, her tactical officer called out, long-range sensors are picking up multiple fleets moving in our direction. Looks like the Viridians called in every ally they could find. Min studied the tactical display. The alien fleets were moving exactly as expected. They still fought in terms of conventional space warfare, of fleets meeting in open battle. They hadn't grasped that human ships could be anywhere, hiding in plain sight, waiting to strike. Send word to all commands, Min ordered. Execute Phase 2. Across human space, more ships revealed themselves. Vessels that had been hiding in deep space, powered down to avoid detection, came to life. Ships that had been disguised as space debris activated their systems. The true extent of human military power began to show itself. The aliens had thought they had contained humanity within certain territorial boundaries. They had never understood that humans hadn't been confined. They had been expanding in secret, establishing hidden bases and staging areas throughout the galaxy. As Min watched the alien fleets approach, she thought about how long humanity had waited for this moment. 3 centuries of hiding their true strength, of playing the part of a barely civilized species struggling to meet galactic standards, all while preparing, building, and waiting for the day when the facade would no longer be necessary. The day the Deathworlders stopped playing nice wasn't just about revealing hidden military might. It was about showing the galaxy that every restriction, every limitation, every attempt to contain humanity had only made them more determined to succeed. The real battle was just beginning, and the aliens were about to learn why underestimating humans was the last mistake they would ever make. Scholar Rez's hands trembled as he studied the ancient records in the Galactic Archives. The massive library, carved deep into the core of a dead star, held the collected knowledge of thousands of species. But right now, only one species mattered: humans. The holographic displays around him showed Earth's history in terrifying detail. The planet itself seemed designed to kill: extreme temperature swings, powerful storms, shifting tectonic plates that caused earthquakes and volcanoes. But that was just the beginning. Earth's gravity was higher than most habitable worlds, forcing its creatures to develop dense muscles and strong bones. Its atmosphere contained toxic oxygen in quantities that would poison most species. Its oceans held enough pressure to crush standard spacecraft. And yet, humans had not just survived there. They had thrived. Elder Re, his assistant, called softly, "You should see this data on human regeneration." Ra moved to another display, his crystalline form catching the light. The medical records showed humans recovering from injuries that would have killed any other known species. Broken bones that healed stronger than before. Damaged organs that regrew. Even their blood could clot to seal wounds, an ability that had seemed like magic to other species. "We were such fools," Ray whispered. We saw these abilities as interesting biological quirks. We never asked why they developed them. The archives told the story. Humans had evolved as pursuit predators, able to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Their bodies could regulate temperature through sweating, an ability nearly unique in the galaxy. They could go days without sleep, survive weeks without food, and adapt to almost any environment. More displays activated, showing human psychological studies. Ray felt his crystalline structure vibrate with stress as he read. Humans didn't just survive physical challenges. Their minds had evolved to overcome any obstacle. Where other species would give up, humans would keep trying. Where others would accept defeat, humans would find another way. Look at their history. Ray's assistant pointed to another display. Every time they faced extinction, they grew stronger. Every disaster made them more resilient. Every challenge made them more determined. Jai-Wan took a deep breath. The Ark Horizon isn't just a ship, it's a seed. She paused as confused murmurs filled the chamber. What we initially thought were manufacturing facilities are actually part of a much larger system. The humans have created something unprecedented in our experience. The holographic display zoomed in on specific sections of the massive vessel. These facilities don't just produce replacement parts or supplies. The entire ship is designed to reproduce itself completely. High Council leader Johan's eyes widened. Reproduce? You mean? Yes, Jai-Wan confirmed. The Ark Horizon can create perfect copies of itself. It contains everything needed to scan nearby asteroids or planetary bodies, break them down into raw materials, and construct entirely new vessels identical to itself. The council chamber erupted in shocked discussions. Ambassador Sunmai raised her hand for silence. How is this possible? The energy requirements alone would be. Their energy technology is beyond our understanding, Jai-Wan explained. The ship's power core operates on principles we can barely detect, let alone comprehend. But we've confirmed these capabilities through multiple scans. Admiral Kita stepped forward. Show them the simulation, Jai-Wan. She nodded and adjusted the display. A mathematical model appeared, showing the Ark Horizon approaching an asteroid field. The simulation demonstrated how the ship would deploy specialized drones to analyze and harvest materials, process them through its internal systems, and gradually construct a copy of itself. The process would take approximately 14 standard days, Jai-Wan explained, and each new ship would have the same capabilities as the original. War Minister Du Hyun's face had lost its purple hue, turning pale. One ship, he whispered, is all they ever needed. Kita finished. Don't you see? They didn't send one ship as an insult or a show of arrogance. They sent one ship because that's all it takes. The implication slowly dawned on the council members. Ambassador Sunmai was the first to speak. If they wanted to, they could. Create an entire fleet, Jai-Wan confirmed. Each new ship could build more ships, exponentially increasing their numbers. Within months, they could have hundreds, even thousands of vessels identical to the Ark Horizon. The warrior-born Krell representatives, who had been loudly supporting military action earlier, now sat in stunned silence. Council member Rensho's scales had turned a pale gray of shock. There's more, Jai-Wan continued. Each copy would contain the same advanced ecosystems, the same manufacturing capabilities, the same self-repair systems. They wouldn't just be building ships, they'd be creating self-sustaining worlds. High Council leader Johan stood slowly. And they chose to tell us this directly, through peaceful contact, rather than simply appearing with an overwhelming fleet. Exactly, Kita said. They could have built their fleet in secret and approached us with overwhelming numbers. Instead, they chose honesty and diplomacy. War Minister Du Hyun, who had been calling for military action just hours before, slumped in his seat. Their restraint, it wasn't weakness at all. No, Ambassador Sunmai agreed. It was wisdom, and perhaps a test, to see how we would respond to a peaceful approach from a more advanced civilization. Jai-1 adjusted the display one final time, showing the potential growth pattern of Arc Horizon vessels. The mathematical projection spread across the star map like a blooming flower, each point representing a potential ship. This is why they sent just one ship, she concluded, because in their hands, one perfect design is more powerful than 1,000 conventional vessels. They don't need numbers. They don't need intimidation. They simply needed to create something that could grow and adapt as needed. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment as the full implications sank in. The humans hadn't approached them with a ship. They had approached them with the seed of a civilization, capable of growing into whatever was needed. High Council Leader Johann finally broke the silence. "I believe," he said carefully, "that our earlier vote on military action is no longer necessary. Perhaps we should instead discuss how best to welcome these remarkable humans into our community of worlds." Around the chamber, heads nodded in agreement. The mood indicators shifted from colors of fear and aggression to shades of respect and cautious optimism. They had just learned an important lesson about judging capabilities based on numbers alone, and not one of them would soon forget it. Despite the Council's revelations, a faction of hardline military commanders had launched an unauthorized operation. 12 coalition warships now surrounded the Arc Horizon, their weapons primed and targeting systems locked. Admiral Kita watched in horror from the command center as the situation unfolded. The rogue commanders had acted without authorization, convinced they could still intimidate the human vessel into submission. "Get me a channel to those ships immediately," Kita ordered, but Commander He-jin shook his head. "They're blocking our communications, sir." They'd gone completely dark. On the main display, Dr. Park's image appeared, as calm and composed as ever. Her voice carried through all frequencies, reaching both the rebel ships and the coalition command. "We understand your concerns," she said softly, "and we would prefer peace. But if you insist on this course of action, we are prepared for alternatives." The Arc Horizon began to move, its massive form gliding with impossible grace toward a nearby asteroid field. The rebel ships followed, maintaining their threatening formation. Science Officer Jai-1 burst into the command center, her scales flashing urgent patterns. "Admiral, they're going to demonstrate. They're actually going to show them." The massive view screen showed the Arc Horizon as it approached the asteroids. Its iridescent hull began to pulse with new patterns of light, and then the transformation began. Massive sections of the hull shifted and reformed. Mechanical tendrils, each kilometers long, extended from the ship's surface. They moved with fluid precision, reaching out to multiple asteroids simultaneously. "By the first ones," He-jin whispered, his scales turning pale. The tendrils made contact with the asteroids, and the true demonstration began. Energy fields surrounded each rock, and before their eyes, the asteroids began to break down into their component materials. Streams of refined metals, minerals, and other elements flowed through the tendrils back to the Arc Horizon. "Full sensor recording," Kita ordered. "The Council needs to see every second of this." The rebel ships held their positions, weapons still charged but no longer seeming quite so threatening as they watched the display of technological superiority before them. Within hours, the first changes became visible. A framework began to emerge alongside the Arc Horizon, constructed from the processed materials. It grew with incredible speed, systems and structures taking shape as they watched. "The efficiency is impossible," Jai-1 said, checking her readings. "They're not just building. They're improving the design as they go. Learning, adapting, evolving." By the end of the first day, a second ship had taken clear shape. It wasn't just a copy. It was a perfect twin of the Arc Horizon, down to the smallest detail. As they watched, its hull came alive with the same shimmering patterns as its parent vessel. But the Arc Horizon wasn't finished. Its tendrils reached out to more asteroids, and the process began again. A third framework appeared, then a fourth. "Message from Dr. Park," He-jin announced. "Put it through," Kita ordered. "We hope this demonstration helps explain our approach, Dr. Park said calmly. Each new vessel is fully capable of repeating this process. We could fill this system with ships in weeks if we chose to. But that is not our way. We prefer to build bridges rather than fleets. The rebel ships began to withdraw, their weapons powering down. The message was clear. They had drastically underestimated humanity's capabilities. By the third day, 5 identical ships hung in space where there had been one. Each pulsed with the same otherworldly energy, each capable of creating more of its kind. Jai-1 shook her head. The principles behind the Ark vessels are beyond our current understanding. Their ships aren't just machines. They're more like living organisms, constantly growing and evolving. We're decades, maybe centuries from achieving anything similar. Then what options do we have? Du Hyun asked, his earlier aggression replaced by genuine concern. Kita smiled slightly. We have the best option of all. They want peace. They've offered to share some of their technology to help us advance. They're not looking for dominance. They're looking for partners. The display showed the current position of the Ark vessels. They had maintained their distance, made no aggressive moves, yet their very presence had completely changed the balance of power in coalition space. Their approach was perfect, He-jin concluded. They didn't need to threaten or intimidate. They simply showed us what they could do, then offered friendship instead of force. It's a level of sophistication our military doctrine never considered. High Council leader Johan stood slowly. We have much to learn from these humans, not just about technology, but about power itself. True strength, it seems, isn't about having the most ships or the biggest fleet. It's about having the right approach. The council chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. Their entire understanding of military power, built over centuries, had been upended by a single human vessel. Yet instead of feeling threatened, there was a growing sense of excitement about the possibilities this new relationship might bring. I move, Ambassador Sunmi announced, that we immediately begin drafting a comprehensive peace treaty with the humans, not from fear, but from respect and a desire to learn from them. As the council members voted unanimously in favor, Kita watched the display showing the Ark vessels. They hung in space like a promise of what was possible when innovation replaced intimidation, when quality overcame quantity. The balance of power hadn't just shifted, it had been completely transformed, and the galaxy would never be quite the same again. The grand meeting hall of the Coalition's central world sparkled with ceremonial lights. Thousands of representatives from every member species gathered to witness the historic moment. The massive chamber, designed to showcase the Coalition's unity and strength, seemed somehow more magnificent with the addition of humanity's first official delegation. Ambassador Sunmi approached the ancient signing table, its surface carved from the first asteroid, where Coalition species met in peace. Beside her, Dr. Park moved with graceful confidence, her diplomatic robes now incorporating both human and Coalition designs. Admiral Kita stood at attention with other military leaders, his antennae moving in patterns of deep satisfaction. Commander He-jin stood beside him, scales shifting through colors of pride and optimism. Who could have imagined, He-jin whispered, that one ship would lead to this? The treaty signing ceremony began with traditional Coalition protocols. High Council leader Johan spoke the ancient words of welcome, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. Today, we do not merely sign a treaty, he announced. We embrace a new understanding of what is possible. Our new human friends have shown us that true strength lies not in numbers, but in innovation. Dr. Park rose to speak, her voice clear and confident. The human race comes not to dominate, but to share and learn. Our Ark vessels were never meant as weapons, but as bridges between stars and species. Today we build the most important bridge of all, one of trust and mutual understanding. The terms of the treaty appeared on massive displays throughout the chamber. The humans would share select technologies, starting with environmental systems that could help terraform struggling Coalition worlds. In return, the Coalition would provide detailed star charts of unexplored regions and facilitate cultural exchanges between species. Science Officer Jaiwan, now heading the new Human Technology Integration Division, could barely contain her excitement as she reviewed the technical appendices. The humans had agreed to teach them the principles behind their self-repairing hull materials, a first step toward understanding their more advanced technologies. War Minister Du Hyun, who had once called for military action against the single human ship, now stood proudly among those supporting peace. His change of heart represented the coalition's larger transformation in thinking about power and diplomacy. As Sun Mai and Dr. Park signed the treaty, their movements synchronized in a show of harmony. Ki-ta reflected on how much had changed. The coalition had built its reputation on having the largest fleet in known space. Now they understood that innovation and adaptation were the true currency of power. The ceremony continued with the traditional exchange of gifts. The coalition presented the humans with a crystal matrix containing the combined artistic and cultural achievements of all member species. Dr. Park, in turn, activated a small device that projected a complete star map of human space, a gesture of absolute trust. The humans didn't just change how we think about ships, Kita said softly to Hujin. They changed how we think about everything. After the main ceremony, representatives mingled in the Great Hall. Kita watched as coalition scientists eagerly discussed possibilities with their human counterparts. Species that had once competed for military dominance now collaborated on plans for exploration and discovery. Dr. Park approached Kita during the celebrations. Admiral, I hope you understand now why we came as we did. Kita's antennae moved in a pattern of respect. One perfect ship, carrying one perfect message. Peace through innovation, rather than intimidation. Exactly, she smiled. Sometimes the best way to show strength is to demonstrate restraint. As the celebrations continued into the night, the Ark Horizon and its 5 offspring ships maintained their peaceful orbit. Their presence was no longer a source of tension, but a reminder of what was possible when species chose cooperation over conflict. High Council Leader Johan found Kita near the end of the ceremony. What are you thinking, Admiral? Kita watched as humans and coalition species shared stories and ideas, their differences forgotten in the excitement of new possibilities. I'm thinking that everything we assumed about power and progress was limited by our own imagination. One ship taught us that. One perfect ship. Outside, visible through the hall's transparent dome, stars sparkled with new promise. Somewhere out there, other civilizations waited to be discovered. But now the coalition would approach them differently, having learned that true strength wasn't about the size of your fleet or the number of your ships. It was about having the wisdom to send exactly what was needed. No more, no less. And sometimes, as humanity had proven, all you needed was one perfect ship to change the galaxy forever.